They say marriages don't shatter all at once. They crack, they splinter, they rot from the inside until the whole thing falls apart with the gentlest push. I didn't believe that before. I used to think my marriage to Evan was solid, maybe not perfect, but good enough. Steady, secure. Now, looking back, I wonder if the cracks had been there all along, and I just refused to see them. My name is Valerie Hayes. I'm a 30-year-old mother of two, working as a project manager. A job I love, but one that leaves me exhausted by sunset. I'm a white American woman, raised in a modest Kansas town, taught to value stability and commitment above all else. For 9 years, I poured every ounce of my effort into maintaining the illusion of a perfect life with Evan. I'm known for being fiercely protective of my children, and for having a tendency to swallow my own needs for the sake of peace. The hardest thing I've ever had to admit is that the stability I clung to was a carefully constructed lie. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The argument that started everything was so small, so stupid, I almost laugh when I replay it in my head. Almost. Evan and I had fought over dinner. He said I spent too much money buying takeout when I could have just cooked. I reminded him that I work too, and I'm tired most nights after wrangling my 9-year-old son, Danny, and my 5-year-old daughter, Lily, a job and the house. He accused me of always making excuses. I snapped that if he wanted fresh cooked meals every night, he should pick up a damn pan once in a while. That was it. Nothing groundbreaking. We'd had worse fights before. Normally, we'd yell, slam a few doors, and then by the next day, someone would break, mutter an apology, and life would go on. But this time, it was strong, different. The house fell silent afterward. Not the usual tense silence where you know an apology is coming. No, this was heavier. It was like the silence after a storm that never clears, where the air feels charged, but no rain falls. Evan barely looked at me. He didn't speak to me. The kids noticed too. My son, Danny, kept asking if Daddy was mad at him. My daughter, Lily, only 5, followed me around with wide, nervous eyes like I had answers I couldn't give. This was the first hint of the cruel, calculated indifference that was to become my new reality. I tried to push through it. I cooked. I cleaned. I put on cartoons to distract the kids. But Evan avoided me. He buried himself in his phone, in work, in anything but us. This cold withdrawal was worse than any yelling. It was the slow, suffocating death of intimacy. Finally, I broke. I hated the silence more than I hated the fight itself. So I decided to be the bigger person. I found him in the living room one night, staring blankly at the TV, and I sat beside him. My heart was pounding harder than it should have been. I said softly, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snap. Can we just move on from this?" He didn't even look at me. He just muttered, "You should leave, take the kids, go stay with your mom for a while. I need space to think." At first, I thought I misheard. "What?" "I need space, Valerie," he said. Still not looking at me. "Just go. Please. Take the kids and go to your mom's in Kansas. I'll figure myself out." It felt like he'd punched the air out of my lungs. "You want me to leave? Over this?" "It's not just this. It's everything. Just go." I wanted to demand he explain, but the look on his face stopped me cold. Not angry, not regretful. Just flat, like I was talking to a stranger. So I packed up the kids, my hands trembling, my heart in pieces, and drove to my mom's place, exiled over a plate of uneaten takeout. My mom's house in Kansas has always been a safe place, but that week it felt like a cage. I told myself it was temporary. Evan just needed to cool off, and when he missed me, missed the kids, he'd call. But the days stretched on and my phone stayed silent. That silence was a calculated weapon, turning my uncertainty into terror. I called him, over and over. each time, the call didn't go through. No ringing, no voicemail. Just dead air, like his number had fallen off the face of the earth. By the third day, I was spiraling. I stared at my phone so much, my mom noticed. "Give him time," she said gently, her voice strained. "Men sometimes need to stew in their pride before they come around." I nodded, pretending to believe her. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Evan wasn't just silent. He was unreachable. It felt like a deliberate act of erasure. Then, as if life wanted to twist the knife, I got a text from Ethan. Ethan. I hadn't seen that name pop up on my phone in years. He was my first serious love, back when I was barely 20. We were intense, reckless, inseparable, until he left. He had dreams bigger than our small town, dreams that took him overseas. We promised to wait, to try, but long distance is cruel. We faded. Or rather, he faded, and I clung until I couldn't anymore. Now, after all this time, there it was. His name. His message. "Hey, Valerie, I'm back in town. Would love to see you. Just to catch up, no pressure." I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart tugging in two directions. A part of me wanted to reply instantly. Another part of me slammed the brakes. I was married. Complicated as things were, I was still married. So I ignored it, deleted the message even. But that seed of curiosity, fueled by my escalating fear and Evan's eerie silence, was planted. A week later, the phone finally rang. It wasn't Evan, it was Greg, one of Evan's closest friends. I answered, relief flooding me, thinking he was calling to patch things up or pass me a message from Evan. Instead, Greg said casually, "Hey Valerie, just checking in. I heard you and Evan broke up. You okay?" My stomach dropped. "What? Who told you that?" "Evan and I aren't broken up. I'm at my mom's for a while." Greg sounded confused. "But that's not what he said." "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, the line cut off. Static. Silence. My heart was hammering as I redialed, but the call wouldn't reconnect. I sat frozen, clutching my phone like it had betrayed me. What the heck was happening? Evan was not only pushing me out, but painting a false narrative. I tried calling Evan again. Still dead. No connection. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my kids snoring softly beside me in the guest room. My mind was racing, piecing together scraps of confusion and fear. What was Evan telling people? Why was Greg saying we broke up? Why couldn't I reach my own husband? The suspense was agonizing. The next morning, I made up my mind. I kissed my kids goodbye, left them with my mom, and drove back home to our quiet suburban street. I needed answers, and I needed them now. When I reached the house, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my keys. The driveway was empty except for Evan's car. I climbed out, walked up to the door, and knocked. It wasn't Evan who answered. A woman. She stood in the doorway, maybe mid-30s, dressed casually, but with that air of someone who belonged there. Her hair was damp from a shower. She looked at me like I was the intruder. My blood ran cold, the truth hitting me before a single word was spoken. I don't understand," I stammered. "This is my house. Where's Evan?" The woman's expression tightened, transforming from casual annoyance to hostile judgment. "He told me he's divorced." "Are you the jealous ex-wife? Because that makes a whole lot of sense now." My blood ran cold. "Divorced? No, we're not divorced. I'm his wife. I just left for a while because he—" But she didn't let me finish. The realization of what Evan had done, the speed, the cruelty, the betrayal, hit me with the force of a physical blow. She slammed the door in my face so hard, the sound echoed in my ears and rattled the glass panes, shattering the last remnants of my denial. I stood there on the porch, shaking, tears burning my eyes, staring at the door that had just been shut on me, on my life, on my family. and I never even got to see Evan. He was a coward, hiding behind a mistress and a wall of lies he'd constructed. That was the first moment I felt real betrayal seep into my bones. Not suspicion, not worry, calculated betrayal. He hadn't just moved on. He had deliberately set the stage, pushing me away only to replace me instantly and slander my name. I drove back to Kansas numb, barely remembering the road. Back at my mom's, I collapsed on the couch, staring blankly at nothing. My mom asked what happened. I couldn't even form the words. The shock had frozen my grief, leaving only a hollow space where my heart used to be. The tension was unbearable. I was home, but my life had just been stolen. Later that night, the need for answers, for clarity amid the swirling chaos, overtook the numbness. I called another mutual friend, Rosa. She listened quietly as I asked if she'd seen Evan lately. Her voice was hesitant, laced with pity. "We all saw him last weekend, at couples' night. He came alone. He said you'd left him. He broke down crying in front of us, said he didn't know where you went, that you abandoned him, that he was heartbroken." I felt my chest cave in. My mouth went dry. "He what?" The sheer audacity of the lie was staggering. Rosa sighed. I didn't know what to believe, but Valerie, he seemed devastated. I hung up and sat in the dark for hours, my confusion and heartbreak quickly simmering into something hotter, sharper. It wasn't just the affair. It was the meticulous construction of his narrative. Evan hadn't just lied. He'd staged a whole story. He made me the villain, the unstable wife who deserted her family. He painted himself the grieving victim, and he didn't even wait for the dust to settle before parading another woman in my home. The love betrayal was complete. That night, I lay in bed with my kids curled against me, staring at the ceiling with silent tears tracing paths down my temples. The desire to simply survive was replaced by a simmering need to fight back, to reclaim my truth. And that's when I remembered Ethan's message, the one I'd ignored, the one I'd deleted. In the darkness, Ethan, my passionate, reckless first love, stopped being a mistake from the past and became a potential beacon, a source of forbidden curiosity, a means to an end, perhaps. That night, I remembered Ethan's message. I couldn't sleep. My body was tired, but my mind kept spinning. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evan, smiling at another woman in the doorway of my house, spinning lies about me to his friends, playing the victim. The betrayal felt like a knife pressed against my skin, sharp enough to keep me bleeding. By 2 a.m., I was staring at the dark ceiling of my mom's guest room, the glow of my phone screen lighting my face. My kids were fast asleep beside me, their tiny breaths even and innocent. They had no idea their father was unraveling everything we'd built. I scrolled back, searching for Ethan's text, only to remember I'd deleted it. My heart thudded as I typed his name in my contacts. The number was still there. I hovered my thumb over the call button, shaking. What was I doing? For 10 years, I hadn't spoken to him. He had been my first love, my first heartbreak. A guy who'd once whispered promises under the Kansas stars. Reaching out to Ethan felt dangerous, like stepping onto a frozen lake without knowing how thin the ice was. But anger has a way of making you reckless. It was a mix of despair and curiosity driving my fingers. So I pressed call. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Valerie?" My throat closed up. I hadn't realized how much hearing his voice would affect me. It was deeper now, rougher, but still carried that warmth I remembered. "Yeah, hi," I managed. There was a pause, then a smile in his tone. "I didn't think you'd call." "I shouldn't have," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Another pause. "Do you want to meet?" I should have said no. I should have hung up. Instead, I found myself saying, "Tomorrow." The next afternoon, I told my mom I needed to get some air. She didn't ask many questions, just gave me a long look, like she knew more than she let on. Mothers always do. Ethan picked a quiet coffee shop in town, the kind where nobody you knew was likely to wander in. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting by the window. He stood as soon as he saw me. He hadn't changed much. His hair was a little shorter, some lines around his eyes now, but he still had that easy smile, that air of confidence. "Valerie," he said softly, almost like a sigh. I sat down across from him, suddenly aware of how fast my heart was beating. For a while, we just looked at each other, the silence heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, he said, "I meant it when I texted. I'd love to reconnect. I've thought about you more times than I can count." I gave a small, bitter laugh. "You left. You didn't look back." His smile faltered. "You know why I left. I had nothing here. No job, no future. I thought if I went, I could come back better. For us. Except when you came back, you didn't come for me." He winced but didn't argue. Instead, he leaned forward. "What about you? You're married, right?" I swallowed hard. "I don't even know anymore." And then, for reasons I still don't understand, I told him everything. About the fight with Evan. About him pushing me out. About the calls that never went through. The friends who believed his lies. The other woman at my house, slamming the door in my face. It all came pouring out. My rage, my humiliation, my confusion. Ethan listened, his jaw tightening, his hands clenching into fists. That bastard. Hearing someone else confirm the betrayal was strangely liberating. When I finished my confession, Ethan sat back, studying me with an intense gaze. "You don't deserve that. You deserve someone who'd never throw you out, never replace you." I felt tears sting my eyes, and I hated how easily Ethan could still reach into me and stir such powerful emotions. I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "Don't start. I'm not looking for pity or anything else." He held my gaze, his voice steady. "I'm not offering pity. I'm reminding you of something I promised you a long time ago. I said if I ever came back and you were alone, I'd find you. I'd make things right." I froze. The memory came rushing back. 2 kids lying on the hood of a beat-up car, staring at the night sky. Him whispering those very words. It was a promise built on love and teenage recklessness. Yet here it was, decades later, offering a foundation in my ruin. Over the next few days, coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into long walks. Ethan became my confidant, my escape, filling the gaping hole Evan's betrayal had left behind. Meanwhile, Evan remained silent, unreachable, his actions shouting louder than any apology could. One evening, my mom confronted me. "You're seeing him again, aren't you, Ethan?" I looked away, heat rising in my cheeks. "It's not like that. He's just a friend." Her needles paused. "Is that what you want him to be? Valerie, don't let that man, Evan, use your soft heart to crush you. And don't let guilt keep you from happiness if it comes knocking again." And then she told me something I never expected. "Your father, he wasn't faithful to me." The words hung heavy in the air. My heart thudded. "What?" She nodded slowly. "I found out when you were 10. He had another woman, another family even. I stayed because of you. Because I thought it was better for you to have both parents under one roof." My mom's revelation of a lifelong betrayal lit a fire under my simmering anger. My mother's quiet confession about my father's lifelong betrayal shattered my childhood illusions of stability and solidified my resolve. I wouldn't be her. I wouldn't swallow my pride and my pain for a man who didn't deserve it. The next day, driven by necessity and a burning need for proof, I drove back to the house. I knew Evan wouldn't be there. He was a coward and still unreachable. But I needed to grab my remaining things and fully confirm the extent of his deception. The woman was there again. Her name, I've learned, was Marissa. She looked annoyed, but something in my face, the sheer cold lack of emotion, must have stopped her from slamming the door. I told her everything, from the fight to him sending me away, to me coming back and finding her there. At first, she didn't believe me, but when I showed her old pictures of me and Evan, our wedding photos, the kids, her expression shifted from defensive to horrified. She muttered, "That son of a bitch." Then, almost reluctantly, she let me in. As we packed, she pushed the last suitcase toward me and said, "For what it's worth, I didn't know. He told me you left him. He told me you were unstable." My hands shook as I gripped the handle. "Unstable?" She nodded grimly. "He cried about you, said you abandoned him, made me feel sorry for him." The tension in the house was thick enough to cut. I wanted to scream, to tear the walls down. Evan hadn't just replaced me. He had completely fabricated a narrative of my instability to secure his own position as the wounded party. That night, back at my mom's, my heart was no longer just broken. It was tempered by the heat of revenge. I knew who I needed to call. When Rosa left that night after helping me unpack, the house felt hollow. The children were asleep. My mother was in her room, and I sat in the dark, staring at Ethan's number on my phone. I thought about Evan's lies, about Marissa's shocked face, and about my mother's decades-long secret. All the structures of my life had collapsed. I pressed call. "Valerie," Ethan's voice came through, warm and steady. "Can we meet?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Of course," he said without hesitation. I didn't talk about revenge that night. I just listened to him talk, let his laughter fill the silence Evan had left behind. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. I realized that Ethan wasn't just a nostalgic fling. He was becoming the anchor I desperately needed. He was the opposite of Evan, present, honest, and entirely focused on me. The next morning, as I made breakfast for Danny and Lily, my mind was clearer. Ethan had been attentive, asking nothing, demanding nothing. He simply was. The kids loved him immediately. Danny clung to him, asking 1,000 questions about his job, while Lily, shy at first, accepted a small stuffed bear he'd brought. She laughed, a sound that cut through the lingering tension in the house. A week passed, and every day Ethan became a part of our lives a little more. He helped with homework, fixed broken toys, and sang songs with Lily. He was the architect of our illusion of normalcy. But even as I enjoyed these moments, the shadow of Evan still lurked. I still couldn't reach him, but every night I worried. Was he out there, spinning more lies? Was he preparing his next, more toxic move? Even as Ethan solidified his place as the steady presence in our lives, the shadow of Evan loomed, a persistent source of suspense. I still couldn't reach him, which was both a relief and a terrifying vacuum. Yet every night, I worried. What was he plotting? Then one afternoon, while I was walking the kids to the park, my phone buzzed. It was Evan. The screen lit up with his name, the name of the man who had effortlessly replaced me, then slandered me. I froze. My fingers trembled as I stared at it. I didn't answer. Ethan noticed immediately. "Who's that?" he asked. I pocketed the phone. "No one, just old business." I felt a pang of guilt, not for ignoring Evan, but for keeping that knot of fear private from Ethan. Still, the call rattled me. It was a sign he was paying attention, that my silence was finally getting under his skin. I thought about what Evan must be feeling: anger, confusion, maybe even a consuming jealousy. And if he was capable of lying, of replacing me, of manipulating his friends, what else could he be planning? Ethan, unaware of the specific dread the phone call ignited, had a way of pulling me out of my fear. We went on long walks after dinner, the kids riding bikes while we talked. One night, sitting by the river, I admitted, "I'm scared, Val. Scared of trusting again. Scared that I'll let someone in and they'll just leave or hurt me." He reached out, his hand brushing mine. "I know," he said softly. "I've been scared too. But maybe we don't have to be scared together." For the first time, I believed we could share the burden. But life rarely lets you stay in moments like that. The next morning, a package arrived at my mom's house. I opened it, my heart sinking as I saw the flowers. White lilies, my favorite. A card attached. Valerie, I've made a mistake. Please call me Evan. The flowers felt less like an apology and more like a strategic chess move, a calculated attempt at further manipulation. The white lilies sent by Evan sat on the kitchen counter, a beautiful, rotten symbol of his attempted manipulation. I felt my stomach churn. I wanted to burn the flowers and rip the card apart, but curiosity gnawed at me. What had shifted in his carefully constructed world that made him reach out now? Was Marissa gone? I shoved the package aside and refused to answer the text or the gesture. Noticed the flowers immediately when he came over that evening. Who sent those? I swallowed hard. Evan, I don't know why. He frowned, quiet for a moment. Then he said softly, "Do you want me to handle it? Just talk to him, find out what he wants. I'll stay out of it, but you shouldn't let him scare you into doubting yourself." I shook my head, sensing the dangerous edge of revenge creeping into the conversation. No, I can't. I won't. Not anymore. I had to draw my own defensive line. Days turned into weeks. Ethan and I grew closer. The kids adored him, and I found myself laughing more, sleeping better, living more fully. Evan was a ghost, haunting only when I let my mind wander too far. Then, one night, Rosa called. She sounded urgent. "Valerie, you need to see this. Evan, he's showing up at people's doors, saying things about you, about us. He's trying to manipulate everyone." My chest tightened. "What things?" I asked. "I don't know all of it, but he's telling them you left him, that you're unstable, that you've abandoned the kids." I felt bile rise in my throat. My carefully rebuilt peace, my burgeoning happiness with Ethan, was threatened by Evan's escalating lies. He was systematically trying to destroy my reputation and isolate me. The need for confrontation, for an end to this vicious cycle of betrayal and slander, became an absolute necessity. I needed a plan. I needed control. That weekend, as Ethan helped Danny build a model rocket and Lily colored at his side, I watched, my heart aching. I wanted Ethan to be the one, the permanent fixture who loved me and my children unconditionally. But Evan's shadow lingered, a constant reminder of the past I couldn't erase. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Adrian and I sat in the living room, a bottle of wine between us. He reached out, took my hand in his. "Valerie, I know he's still out there, but I promise you, whatever he does, we'll face it together. You and I, against the world if we have to." "It's not just him," I whispered. "It's everything. The lies, the betrayal, Marissa, my mom's secrets. I don't even know who I am anymore without all of it dragging me down." Ethan brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Then let me help you find out. Let's rebuild together, piece by piece." That week, I started taking small steps. I spoke to Rosa more, gathering information about Evan, where he had been, who he'd been with, what specific lies he had told. Each detail, each fragment made my blood boil. He was trying to rewrite history, to make me the villain, cementing the sense of revenge I needed to move forward. Then, one afternoon, while packing up old things in the attic, I found a box of letters. Letters from Evan before we were married. Some sweet, some clingy, some dark, hinting at a possessive jealousy that I had dismissed as flattering young love. I held the letter in my hand, trembling. The signs were always there. He had always been capable of bending reality to suit his needs. I realized then how much of myself I had lost to his subtle manipulation. But I also realized I was free now. Free to live, free to love, free to choose Ethan completely. The days that followed felt like a fragile bubble, and I knew bubbles always pop. Ethan was my calm, but the undercurrent of suspense was relentless. The knock at the door that made my stomach twist. The bright red roses from Evan that I left in the trash outside. The scent of deception clinging to the air. One night, I found a note taped to the front door. Not mailed, but physically affixed. It was a terrifying escalation. You think you're free, Valerie, but you can't erase me. You can't erase what we had. I will have you back, one way or another. The message was a toxic blend of obsession and possessive love betrayal. I crumpled the note and burned it in the fire pit. When Ethan arrived, I showed him the ashes. It's him, Evan. He's escalating. Then we finish this. Tonight. We end this, Ethan stated, his voice ringing with a conviction that matched my own burgeoning sense of revenge. I called Rosa for the final pieces of information: Evan's current address, his schedule. We planned carefully, ensuring we had a witness and control over the environment. It felt like preparing for war, a necessary confrontation to reclaim my stolen life. The night arrived. I left Danny and Lily safely with my mom. Ethan and I walked up to Evan's apartment door, our hearts racing. Evan opened the door. His eyes widened when he saw me, and then narrowed when he saw Ethan standing squarely, protectively beside me. Valerie, he breathed. I didn't let him finish. I spoke the truth I had rehearsed for weeks, my voice soft but firm, radiating the sheer weight of his betrayal. I am done listening to your lies. Done being manipulated. Done being afraid. Enough, I snapped. The righteous fire in my chest burned away the last vestiges of fear. You lied to me. You replaced me. You tried to control everyone around you. You tried to erase me from my own life. Do you have any idea what that did to me? To the kids? Evan faltered. His mask of smooth victimhood was cracking, revealing the desperate, jealous man underneath. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, pathetic bouquet of flowers. Trembling hands, barely holding them. Valerie, please, just listen. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but icy. Step back, Evan. You don't get to speak to her like that anymore. Not here, not ever again. Evan stared at Ethan, then back at me, his face a mask of anger, jealousy, and, crucially, fear. He dropped the flowers on the ground. You'll regret this, he hissed, the threat laced with the despair of a manipulator losing his grip. I didn't flinch. No, I will not regret choosing my life, my family, and my happiness over your obsession. Leave. And then, he did. He turned on his heel and walked away, a coward's retreat, but not before casting one last look over his shoulder. A look full of rage, jealousy, and utter heartbreak. He hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost his ability to control my reality. We stood in the hallway for a moment, Ethan and I, hands intertwined, breathing in unison. The confrontation hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary. I had faced the past and I had claimed my life back. Ethan squeezed my hand. You did it. You faced him. You didn't back down. We did it, I corrected him, smiling through the adrenaline. Together. The next morning, the house was quiet, imbued with a new kind of peace. Evan's presence, that suffocating shadow, was finally gone. His calls, texts, and attempts to manipulate us stopped completely, as if the confrontation had truly broken his obsession. I felt an immense wave of relief, realizing that the most potent form of revenge was simply refusing to play his game. Ethan and I continued to build our life. He seamlessly became part of Danny and Lily's routines, a natural, loving co-parent. We celebrated birthdays, school achievements, and the small, ordinary victories that make up a real, unmanipulated life. Every night, when I tucked the kids into bed, I felt a deep, profound sense of security I hadn't known since before Evan's betrayal. One quiet evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Danny climbed onto my lap. Mom, he said, his voice serious. Can we stay like this forever? You, me, Lily, and Ethan? I hugged him tightly, kissing the top of his head. Yes, baby, forever. Lily, sitting next to Ethan, nodded vigorously. Forever, she echoed, smiling. I looked at Ethan, his eyes reflecting the fading sunlight, and whispered, We did it. We survived. We're here, together. He smiled, resting his head against mine. And we'll keep surviving, and living. and loving. I leaned into him, letting the warmth of his body and the love in his eyes fill me. I realized that the best revenge was not confrontation or punishment, but living fully. Evan had tried to destroy me, but I had taken my life back, not with anger, but with joy, love, and hope. I was no longer defined by his lies. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "This is mine, all of it. My life, my happiness, my family." I had never felt more alive and terrified at the same time. The days after Evan's silent confrontation across the street were tense. Every sound made me jump: the screech of tires, the distant bark of a dog, the ring of my phone. Every shadow in the corner of my eye could have been him, plotting, stalking, trying to rewrite my life again. Ethan noticed, of course. He was patient, steady, the anchor I needed. He never scolded me for my paranoia, never belittled my fear. Instead, he'd sit beside me on the porch at night, his hand over mine, and say, "He can't touch you. Not anymore. Not if we do this right." And we were. The kids had started school again. Danny had joined the soccer team, and Lily had her first piano recital. Ethan had taken to coaching Danny's team on weekends and giving Lily piano lessons in the evenings, which made the house hum with life in a way it hadn't in years. The house felt like a home again, warm, chaotic, filled with laughter, and for once, truly mine. I had never felt more alive and terrified at the same time. Evan could try to haunt me, manipulate me, or scare me, but he couldn't control me anymore. Not with Ethan by my side, not with the truth in my hands, not with the children who loved me without reservation. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "This is mine, all of it. My life, my happiness, my family." My past with Evan was just that, past. Ethan, the kids, and I were our present, and nothing could change that. I knew the truth of what it meant to be free. Free to love, free to laugh, free to choose happiness. Strong, free to live. Click on the next story waiting for you on screen, because trust me, the betrayals only get darker from here.